Welcome back to On the Inside. This is James O'Keefe every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, bringing you breaking news reports and, of course, our upcoming bombshell next week. And the week after that, you won't want to miss it. You may have seen what I said to you last week about arrests and accountability are coming. Went a little viral. I'll just remind you of what I said. And we are going to break the biggest story of our career. I always say that because we keep outdoing ourselves. Where are the arrests? They're coming. Oh, they're coming. It's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, it's going to create a constitutional crisis. And stay tuned for that. We're already there. We're already in a constitutional crisis. Yeah, but it's different when you have it on video. Everyone knows that. Ask Nick Shirley. And it's not just me that's going to be involved. We're going to have a small army of other citizen journalists getting the same exact thing. You have to believe it for it to happen. If you believe that there won't be arrests, there won't be arrests. But if you make it happen, if you will it to happen, and if you work towards it happening, there will be arrests. And we're going to make it happen. Because this year, effective in the month of March, we're going to expose the mother. Stay tuned. O'Keefe out. This show is brought to you by our sponsors, American Independence Gold and Impact Health Sharing, two partners who believe in protecting what matters most, your future and your well-being. We're grateful for their support funding this type of investigative reporting, and even more grateful for all of you tuning in. We have a huge show for you today. A new update on the 8A investigation. Remember that one that led to Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, canceling, suspending contracts. Kelly Loeffler talking about that. Now we have some new material exposing fraud in that subcontracting program, the DEI program. We'll get to that. But first, this from National Public Radio, which covered all the lawsuits we're facing, all things considered. Listen to, we hear as many as 30 to 40 million people listen to All Things Considered. We're going to play that for you right now after NPR took notice of one of our undercover investigations, multiple ones, and interviewed the guy who recorded inside of DHS, talking about Kristi Noem. She's been in the news recently. NPR covering all the lawsuits, and NPR saying that James O'Keefe shows no signs of stopping. Let's roll that tape.
The activist James O'Keefe, known for undercover stunts, had posted a recording of Wright's date, part of a series he calls Dating the Deep State. That video's been viewed more than 2.5 million times. Wright's boss put him on administrative leave and then fired him.
Dating in the nation's capital has always been difficult, but people who work for the federal government now face a new obstacle, being recorded by undercover activists. Some of those cases are making their way to court, where judges must decide what counts as free speech. NPR's Carrie Johnson reports.
Brandon Wright was fresh off a brutal divorce when he joined a dating app in Washington, D.C. A woman who called herself Heidi caught his attention right away.
The very first thing she asked me when she connected, she said, "So you're like the James Bond of IT?"
Actually, Wright was a rank-and-file tech worker at the Department of Homeland Security, a public servant for 8 years. Eventually, he met Heidi for dinner.
And as things went on, as we continued to sip cocktails, she kept steering the conversation back to politics. And that's not weird in D.C. That's, in fact, talking politics is...
Pause. So just the fact that they've had this Brandon Wright guy on, nobody else has went on NPR, is a little bit of a red flag. There's something a little off about the guy to begin with. Let's keep going. Brandon Wright, NPR, All Things Considered, National Public Radio, taking note of our undercover investigations, dating in the nation's capital. Keep going.
Called a date in Washington, D.C.
Heidi excused herself, and when she came back, Wright says she moved her phone camera in a way that faced him.
She sat down and immediately began asking me about, so is there anything else you want to tell me about your political views? And at that moment, my body started going, something's wrong.
Something was wrong. Wright was on tape saying Kristi Noem, President Trump's nominee to lead the Homeland Security Department, was not a smart person. He added that cabinet secretaries set priorities, but they don't personally tell employees what to do.
Pause. So that we call that in journalism burying the lead. The headline from this video was, quote, "We don't let them get in our way." DHS, he's a GS-14 employee, by the way, DHS official, that's the Platform Services Manager for the Department of Homeland Security, Brandon Wright, saying that the department will defy Trump-appointed secretary marching orders and reveals tactics to interpret priorities that we don't agree with. This is that defiance in the executive branch of government. We're going to roll a little clip of Brandon Wright talking, and this is what the guy actually said. Compare what Brandon Wright within the Department of Homeland Security says on the hidden camera with what he says overtly to All Things Considered.
Kristi Noem, her. So the secretaries can set the priorities for the department. They can't actually tell us what to do. We don't agree with those priorities. There's a lot of room for interpretation in terms of how we interpret what those priorities are.
Wright also said he won't let Kristi Noem get in his way.
The truth is, we don't let them get in our way.
Okay, good.
You're hearing like the real talk from like, we don't let them get in our way. And frankly, that's actually, I would argue, I'm not even being an asshole, I would argue that's my job. You know how a septic tank works? So it like catches all the and like filters up the rocks and then sand and everything. There's a lot of layers like that in government.
Okay.
And by the time the actual marching orders get to like me and below, we can filter in a way that steadies the ship.
So there you have Brandon Wright at DHS. Notice how he behaves in the investigation. Former DHS IT specialist filed suit in U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia against Kristi Noem and Heidi Doe, that's the woman who recorded him, also represented by Mark Zaid, that's the ambulance chaser for the intelligence community attorney. This guy was placed on administrative leave and later terminated in January 2026 for, quote, conduct unbecoming of a federal employee. His statements were reporting what he said. Now he's suing the woman personally for reporting what he said. And the theory here by ambulance chasing attorney Mark Zaid is they're trying to make it a tort, it unlawful civilly in a civil sense. They're trying to make it wrong for a person to go on a dating app and not have real intentions about really wanting to date someone. Well, if that's a form of fraud in the nation's capital, then all dating should be fraudulent. 80 to 90% of dating should be fraudulent. Let's continue with the All Things Considered broadcast at NPR.
I got people sending me texts with the geolocation of my ex-wife's house, where my children spend half of their time, threatening me, saying things like, I hope you can talk to Kristi Noem as well as you can talk to a honeypot.
The activist James O'Keefe, known for undercover stunts, had posted a recording of Wright's date, part of a series he calls Dating the Deep State. That video's been viewed more than 2.5 million times. Wright's boss put him on administrative leave and then fired him. DHS didn't respond for a request for comment about the firing. Now Wright's suing the DHS for violating his rights to free speech and
pause. So violating his rights to free speech. No free speech rights were violated. And in fact, we let him speak. I feel like Mark Zaid doesn't want me to speak. If you're for free speech, then you should be supporting what we're doing. We're giving these people a platform. 2.5 million people heard his rights to free speech. As an employer, you have a right to say whatever you want. It doesn't mean I have to hire you. I'm not required to employ you. If you're braggadocious in a restaurant about, I defy James O'Keefe's orders, I spy on him, I leak, I talk about what we're doing, doesn't mean you have a right to a job. It's really a form of narcissistic gaslighting, isn't it? You all know this, of course. The difference is we're being sued. The undercover reporter is being sued here. Play the rest of it.
His lawyer's Mark Zaid.
You still have First Amendment rights when you work for the government. You can still have your own private opinions. You can have your own private beliefs.
Zaid's been closely following these kinds of undercover operations that mostly target mid-level federal workers and contractors. Few of those men have sued, mostly because Zaid thinks they haven't been able to find lawyers.
We want this practice to stop. It's unfair.
Okay, there he is, attorney Mark Zaid, quote, I want James O'Keefe to stop. There it is. He wants me to stop. Do you guys want me to stop? Do you know how much it costs us to defend, to indemnify our reporters? $10,000 per reporter per month. And we've got many reporters. I pay their legal bills, and that's what it's really about. He wants me to stop. He wants to stop me. Well, I'll talk all about you, Mark Zaid. I'm going to go to a commercial break from our sponsors. I'll be right back. We're going to talk about Mark Zaid, get in the rest of this NPR segment, and then go to the 8A, the brand new undercover investigation showing more behavior of the federal government contractors, supposed to be doing more than 50% of the work, hundreds of billions of dollars going to this program. We'll be right back. This is James O'Keefe. You know me for exposing the truth and holding the corrupt elite accountable. But today I want to talk to you about protecting your own freedom, your retirement. Now, gold is soaring above $4,200 an ounce right now and climbing towards $5,000. That's up over 45% this year alone, with silver closing in on $60 an ounce. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and major banks are now forecasting gold between $5,000 and $6,000 within the next 6 to 12 months. And that's why I've partnered with American Independence Gold, a veteran-owned company where proceeds from every sale help support the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. And right now, my followers get a free gold bar with every purchase of $10,000 or more. Go to O'KeefeMediaGold.com, that's O'KeefeMediaGold.com, or call 833-324-4653. That's 833-324-GOLD. This is James O'Keefe, where freedom isn't given, it's secured. This is not financial advice. Consult a professional before making investment decisions. All right, let's talk healthcare, because the system is a total mess. Do you really trust your insurance company? You're paying outrageous premiums, and months later, the bills still keep coming. Confusing networks, denied claims, surprise fees. Now rates they're saying might go up 20% or more. And did you know that medical debt is the #1 cause of bankruptcy? Those are some of the many reasons why I suggest switching from traditional health insurance to Impact Health Sharing. Impact Health Sharing is a powerful health sharing community that takes the middleman and the corporate profit-driven bureaucracies out of your healthcare and puts the power back in your hands. You can save up to 50% and get clear costs, real savings, and no woke nonsense. You can pick any doctor, no surprise bills, 24/7 telehealth, maternity support. Take control of your healthcare before the system decides for you. Go to ImpactOMG.com to learn more and get your free quote in seconds, or call 855-378-6777 now. That's ImpactOMG.com, ImpactOMG.com. Impact Health Sharing, built differently. Well, we're back, and we're going to listen to the rest of this NPR segment talking about Mark Zaid saying that people who work for the government have free speech. Let's hit it.
You can still have your own private opinions. You can have your own private beliefs.
Zaid's been closely following these kinds of undercover operations that mostly target mid-level federal workers and contractors. Few of those men have sued, mostly because Zaid thinks they haven't been able to find lawyers.
We want this practice to stop. It's unfair. It's slimy, sleazy.
James O'Keefe shows no sign of stopping. He recently posted more undercover videos that feature people who work at the Secret Service and the FBI. His lawyer, Benjamin Barr, says O'Keefe and the women working with him are reporters.
I think James consistently refers to himself as a muckraker, and in that proud tradition, sort of an activist journalist. I see him as an independent journalist.
Barr says the videos he's seen show bureaucrats trying to pump the brakes on President Trump's policies or to block his agenda. That's news, he says.
Even if you don't buy that, I think the act of their very willingness to share political opinions and information about their government jobs to someone they barely know is an item of newsworthiness.
If Brandon Wright and other men captured on video got hurt, Barr says it's because of words that came out of their own mouths. The men ensnared in these honeypot stings are testing lots of different legal theories. Sometimes they argue the women who do the recording committed fraud. Aaron Turr, director of public advocacy for the free speech group known as FIRE. He doesn't think that fraud argument will fly in court.
Now, fraud in the legal sense means lying to obtain money, property, or something of tangible value from the person you're deceiving.
Tur reckons that doesn't quite fit what James O'Keefe and the women working with him are up to. The First Amendment strongly protects gathering and publishing information on issues of public concern, and what's legal may not be moral or ethical. But Tur says investigative journalism sometimes involves deception. Consider it the jungle, he says.
Now, imagine Upton Sinclair said during his job interview, so my goal here is to investigate and write an expose about unfair labor practices and unsanitary conditions at your meatpacking plant. Right? That wouldn't have gone over so well.
As for Brandon Wright, he's trying to move on. One bright spot, he's now engaged. O'Keefe didn't respond to requests for comment. Barr, his lawyer, says he's too busy pursuing other exposés, some of which involve older men meeting with younger women.
James has joked, if you're 40 or 50 and a 9 or a 10 who's 20 years old shows up at an event and is interested in you, she's probably with James O'Keefe.
Carrie Johnson, NPR News.
We're very busy doing other exposés. That's very true. We're always very busy doing many things. But what's interesting there is the fraud argument that NPR is talking about is not true. It's inconsistent with the First Amendment. You can't claim that just because a woman isn't actually interested in you on some type of romantic level that it's a tort. That's not true. But Mark Zed says he wants to shut us down. And I think we have a list of all the lawsuits we're facing currently here at O'Keefe Media Group. We get sued about once every other month, maybe once a month. We've got the Menina case. That's the guy who, from the FBI agent, who was calling Donald Trump a sociopathic narcissist, said he's working with military leaders to try to stop Trump. We've got the Kirkpatrick versus O'Keefe case. That was in the State Farm, the vice president of State Farm suing us after an undercover video captured him discussing internal corporate strategy, saying that it's wrong to build houses in the desert. Fasisi, that's the CIA agent, that said that they were withholding information from Donald Trump. And the Wright versus Kristi Noem, you just heard about that guy. And like I said, if you're going on NPR and you're in the government, there's just something a little bit off about you to do that. These cases reflect a growing legal response by powerful individuals that are trying to create this tortious interference business in Washington, D.C., and the common thread is that all the lawsuits arose after they said what they said. Now, if you are damaged as a result of saying what you say, if you lose your job because of something that you said and did, it doesn't fly under the First Amendment that you can sue and recover. That just isn't so. So they're trying to and notice in this case, they didn't sue me, they sued Kristi Noem. Mark Zaid is trying to try different theories, different legal theories, trying to get something to stick, to shut us down. So what we're fighting for is something fundamental. It's something deeply fundamental in the Constitution, the right to repeat what we're told. That's right, the right to repeat what we are told, which is what we're going to continue doing. Even if they win, they lose. That's what's great about what we do here. We're fighting for the First Amendment itself. So when you donate to Citizen Journalism Foundation, our nonprofit organization, you help fund this. You're not making us rich. You might be making some lawyers rich. That's a story for a different day. But Ben Barr's really helping us out here, our attorney, First Amendment litigation. You're helping fund the First Amendment. You're helping us withstand the lawfare, the legal threats, and expensive battles. People say you don't want to fund litigation. You're not funding litigation. You're helping support the First Amendment. And yes, it's insane that people can try to sue us over words that came out of their own mouth. But that's the reality. Telling the truth comes with a severe cost, a price. And it's a price we are willing to pay. You may remember when we exposed how firms were taking advantage of the Small Business Administration's 8A programs, those programs designed to help the socially and economically disadvantaged small businesses compete in the federal marketplace to win no-bid federal contracts, only to pass most of the actual work to outside subs while pocketing enormous chunks of the compensation for themselves. Now, at the time, we caught executives on tape describing a fraudulent pass-through scheme. She actually used the word pass-through in the undercover tape, one that used minority-owned status as a cover while sidelining the very communities the program was supposed to serve. Here's a quick recap of our interaction with Melaine Cromwell, Director of Contractors for ATI. So ATI do 20%, and those subcontractors do like 80% of the work.
80% of the work.
I don't know if we want to share that they do all the work.
No, never. So we do about 20% of the work.
20%.
Right?
These government contractors like ATI taking advantage of their special minority-owned status.
And I tell you, pass-throughs are a great thing as well. So a lot of our subcontractors bid on contracts that were perfect in their industry, but because they weren't Native American, they wouldn't win it. So we bid on it for them. They became our sub, and it's an automatic win because of your Native American status. Isn't that exciting? Right?
So
a lot of people don't know that.
I don't think anybody knows that.
Right?
And
We want to keep it that way.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
We want to
Exactly.
keep it a secret.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Taking the money in, subcontracting much of the work out.
I sit back, collect my percentage, and they do the work.
Correct. Yeah, they're doing most of the work.
Get the contracts, get the money, act as a pass-through, and it's the taxpayer who gets screwed over.
Was there some rules or something that you were telling me about, like that you have to report 51%?
51%. On paper. Correct.
Right.
But as long as it's on paper.
As long as it's on paper.
51%. You're good to go. And remember, there's no competition because you're Native American. Right?
Ding, ding.
That's the best kept secret.
It is indeed.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Now, ATI had made advantageous deals with Susanville Indian Rancheria, that's the Native American corporation in California, to represent themselves as Native American owned, but in reality, they would delegate 80% of the work to ineligible subcontractors such as Accenture, while keeping 65% of the money for themselves. Let's take a look at that Accenture webpage. There it is, Accenture. This is a major consulting firm based out of Ireland, but most of the money going to greedy white guys in Washington, D.C. Remember, here's Mullane Cromwell admitting they only do 20% of the work, well below the legal requirement of 51%.
I sit back, collect my percentage, and they do the work.
Correct. Yeah, they're doing most of the work.
The people you're subbing to do the majority of the work.
So we do about 20% of the work.
So ATI do 20%, and those subcontractors do like 80% of the work.
80% of the work.
I don't know if we want to share that they do all the work.
No, never. No.
Don't want to share.
Well,
Well, Mullane even acknowledges, again, this is a pass-through scheme using those exact words.
and I tell you, pass-throughs are a great thing as well.
Now, you may be thinking, well, this is a good thing. We're helping the minorities. But as you'll see in just a bit, that's not actually the case. For every $100 that goes to this program, only $7 of that $100 actually goes to the Native American tribal member. And this is a huge problem that people don't know about. We imagine the fraud. We have no idea the scale. And just to give you some perspective, the United States deficit is $2 trillion. This program is $100 billion. And as many of you may remember, we also met up with a second ATI employee who informed us that they keep 65% of the money in the $100 million contract, while according to the first employee that you witnessed, they subcontract 80% of the labor.
So the new contract is basically close to 100 million.
What's the percentage that ATI will retain from that 100 million?
65 for us being the prime,
Got it.
and then 35.
So 65 million.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's a good deal right there.
We posed as headhunters looking to hire someone who could get us government money contracts with the IRS.
And you pay these like Accentures to do the job. And so it's really minimal work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Honestly, that's really, in reality, that's what's happened. I'm not talking bad about my firm, but yeah.
It appears as though these companies are just shell companies, just pass-throughs.
It sounds like you're a pass-through.
Yeah.
Pass-through. Pass-through. Unless Elon comes in and changes the book, changes the law. You take out the pass-through, so to speak.
I don't think they'll dare to touch the native.
There it is right there.
Yeah.
Anish Abraham, but none of these two people are Native American. He's Indian. And the first individual is black. Once again, Anish Abraham claiming that they keep 65% of the $100 million contract. That's $65 million for merely using the Susanville Rancheria to misrepresent themselves as Native American owned and operated while actually being run by Caucasian DC white guys and outsourcing all the labor because, according to Anish Abraham, they're never going to take the money away because they won't touch the Native Americans. So this is just a Kafkaesque nightmare. By the way, they're outsourcing all the labor to subcontractors such as Accenture, which are not 8A eligible.
So the new contract that we signed up for, or we given the proposal for, is basically close to 100 million.
That one contract with the IRS is 100 million?
Yeah, we have the prime on that, but Accenture will be the sub.
In a case like that, what's the percentage that ATI will retain from that 100 million?
65, approximately 65, 35. That's the record.
So 35% for you?
No, 65 for us being the prime, and then 35.
65% revenue and a $100 million contract.
Then you just manage these Accenture people. You really sit back and you don't do the job.
Yeah.
65% of the money.
Right? They're doing the work.
65% of the money.
Yes.
For the total contract value.
That's a $65 million.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good deal right there.
That's a great deal. Notice how they don't recognize me. I still go do this myself. I always do this myself. People complain, I can't do it because I'm recognized in my community. Well, if James O'Keefe can do it, so can you. What's your excuse? Now, much like Malay and Anish acknowledges that this is a pass-through scheme while chuckling, I think we actually have that pass-through quote as well in this video. Roll tape.
You pay these like Accentures to do the job, and so it's really minimal work.
Exactly.
It's almost like it's almost like you're a pass-through. That's right.
Yeah.
Pass-through.
Pass-through. I'm a minority and I'm a woman, so that's also that's a plus. I can be just a pass-through company like ATI.
That's what.
Yes.
And honestly, that's really in reality that's what's happening.
In reality, that's what's happening. In reality, that's what's happening. This report led to an investigation into ATI by Kelly Loeffler, the head of the SBA, Small Business Administration, launched an investigation into ATI that very same day. They said O'Keefe has exposed an important truth. Like every other government program rooted in DEI, the 8A program is rife with grift and fraud. And they have been talking about reforms to 8A ever since. And just 2 days later, Kelly Loeffler announced that ATI had been suspended, the company's grants being suspended. As of today, SBA has officially suspended ATI, as well as 3 of its executives for conducting any new business with the federal government. ATI and its referenced executives will not be permitted to bid for federal contracts when we're contacting the Department of Justice. And we believe the Department of Justice has been looking into this. No one's been indicted or arrested as of late, but maybe that will change soon. The Treasury Department also announced in November they would be investigating approximately $9 billion in small business deals. Wall Street Journal, Treasury probes contract program $9 billion in small business deals. The department is looking into whether companies have misused special programs meant to benefit small businesses. The work of our team did not only get ATI suspended, but after the full release, the SBA announced that it called the first full audit of the 8A program in nearly 50 years. Loeffler, first audit of 8A in 50-year history. We've terminated 20% of all firms participating in this, and we continue to review every contractor and contract to cut out fraud, waste, and DEI. So they've suspended 3 companies and their executives for wrongdoing. Suspended, not arrested, not prosecuted, but we understand the DOJ is looking into this and looking to get involved. We understand Janine Pirro, the lead DOJ official in Washington, D.C., is on the case, and we're not sure that they should just walk away with the money that they made by defrauding this program. What kind of message does that send? You can defraud the government, and if you get caught, you just get to walk away with the money. Well, that's not right. Kelly Loeffler also posted and asked about the 4,300 other 8A firms, asking them to submit them some things. She posted, quote, before this administration, the 8A program was known as an easy target. To root out those bad actors, we've asked all 4,300 firms to submit 3 years' worth of financial documents. Any business that refuses to show us their books will not be allowed to do business with the federal government. And the SBA has moved to terminate over 620 firms in the 8A federal contracting program that refused to turn over those documents. This was actually just last week, just a few days ago. So this is a real movement, and that is real progress. But it also raises a larger question. If the fraud was widespread, why is there no accountability? And where are the arrests? In the wake of this report, we were flooded with more tips than I've ever seen in a single day. There were thousands of people that had information on the inside, showing that almost in every industry is comprised by this fraudulent misrepresentation of being minority-owned. People ask me where the corruption is. I say, where isn't the corruption? It's all about money. It's all about exploitation. It's all about satisfying human nature's desires and pleasures in the easiest manner possible. This absurd system, which demands your business must be minority-owned in order to be classified as an 8A small business, and it has only resulted in businesses being forced to find a minority group or tribe to pose as the owner of the business, while the work ends up getting subcontracted out, resulting in the subcontractor who is doing all the labor getting less than half the money. And like we find in our data and research, only $7 for every $100 actually goes to its intended recipient. And two tribal businesses that seem to be mentioned an awful lot in all of these tips is Chenega and Cherokee. We understand that Chenega, that's in Alaska, receives $1.4 billion through this 8A program, and it only has 100 members. That's $14 million per member. We also understand that there may or may not be a United States senator, we can throw her picture on the screen, who's opposed to all this reform. And gee, I wonder why. Is it about doing the right thing? Or is it all about money? It's always about the money. The fact that people think it isn't about money shows me how foolish and naive even good people can sometimes be. Even in politics, it's about money and power and sex, but really about money because money brings you the power and brings you the sex, doesn't it? Isn't that a true statement? The two businesses that seem to be mentioned a lot, Chenega and Cherokee. In fact, we have sound of a caller from our live stream 1 asking us to investigate Chenega. Let's listen to this. Hello there. You'll be the last caller today.
Okay, thank you. Well, good work. And I've been also exposing miscellaneous government contracts. That's the name of the companies. So good work on that. I give you two companies that you need to also investigate. One is called Cherokee Federal, and the other one is called Chenega.
Can you give me those names again?
Cherokee Federal, and the other one called Chenega. You can DM me, I'll give you the names. And also I can pull up the people on the government who approves these contracts as well. Because I've been doing exposés since January, February this year. So, and I've been working with Data Republican as well. And by the way, for everybody who does not know who I am, I'm a terminated GS-13 intelligence officer. And also, I used to be a contractor as well.
So there you have the caller asking us to investigate Chenega. And you know what? We do the work. It may take us 6 months or 5 months or 4 months or a year, but we listen to our audience and our callers. So we went undercover at the Federal Small Business Conference recently, and sure enough, there were booths for both Cherokee and Chenega. So we approached them to see if they're running a similar scheme, using their tribal-owned status to acquire contracts, then subbing out the majority of the actual labor. First up, Mike Montgomery, the president of Chenega Architecture and Design, an interior design firm. Mike describes taking advantage of the same 8A set-asides that the ATI employees described. And sure enough, Mike Montgomery also acknowledges that they subcontract much of the work out. Quote, They hire business executives that understand the federal marketplace. They don't do the work. They don't do the work. No, they hire people that understand the market.
So what do you guys do? Michael Montgomery?
Yeah, we do architecture, engineering, design, and design build, construction management.
Do you have many offices?
I have 4 companies. We do, yeah.
4 companies.
Yeah, but yeah, my back office is in Ward, Virginia. Actually, our corporate headquarters is in Anchorage, Alaska.
Oh, wow.
We're Alaskan Native owned.
Oh, you are Alaskan Native owned. What does that mean?
It means that we have an incentive because of the Alaskan Native ownership with 8A and our ability to direct source contracts at a higher level than a traditional 8A.
So that's the advantage.
That's the advantage, yeah. Right now, DoD, we can do $150 million direct source.
Automatically, there's no bidding.
Yeah, it can't be protested.
So how do you do that? Because you don't look native.
I'm not native, no. No, they hire business executives that understands the federal market space, but the board members are all Alaskans. And the Chenega tribe.
Chenega tribe. But they don't do the work you guys.
They don't do the work. No, they hire people that understand the market.
Mike Montgomery, president of Chenega Architecture and Design Solutions. Chenega, an Alaskan tribe, has received over $1.4 billion through this 8A program, only has 100 tribal members. That's $14 million a member. He describes the $150 million contract, and he says, nope, I'm not Native American.
All right, let's talk healthcare, because the system is a total mess. Do you really trust your insurance company? You're paying outrageous premiums, and months later, the bills still keep coming. Confusing networks, denied claims, surprise fees. Now rates they're saying might go up 20% or more. And did you know that medical debt is the #1 cause of bankruptcy? Those are some of the many reasons why I suggest switching from traditional health insurance to Impact Health Sharing. Impact Health Sharing is a powerful health sharing community that takes the middleman and the corporate profit-driven bureaucracies out of your healthcare and puts the power back in your hands. You can save up to 50% and get clear costs, real savings, and no woke nonsense. You can pick any doctor, no surprise bills, 24/7 telehealth, maternity support. Take control of your healthcare before the system decides for you. Go to impactomg.com to learn more and get your free quote in seconds, or call 855-378-6777 now. That's impactomg.com, impactomg.com. Impact Health Sharing, built differently. This is James O'Keefe. You know me for exposing the truth and holding the corrupt elite accountable. But today I want to talk to you about protecting your own freedom, your retirement. Now, gold is soaring above $4,200 an ounce right now and climbing towards $5,000. That's up over 45% this year alone, with silver closing in on $60 an ounce. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and major banks are now forecasting gold between $5,000 and $6,000 within the next 6 to 12 months. And that's why I've partnered with American Independence Gold, a veteran-owned company where proceeds from every sale help support the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. And right now, my followers get a free gold bar with every purchase of $10,000 or more. Go to O'KeefeMediaGold.com, that's O'KeefeMediaGold.com, or call 833-324-4653. That's 833-324-GOLD. This is James O'Keefe, where freedom isn't given, it's secured. This is not financial advice. Consult a professional before making investment decisions.
Mike Montgomery acknowledges that the Native American tribe Chenega, which owns the company, doesn't do any of the actual work. So once again, it begs the question, what exactly is the purpose of these 8A programs? Is the intention just to force ineligible companies to split their profits with a native tribe which provides zero labor? What does that actually achieve? And does any of the money actually go to the Native Americans themselves through community reinvestment? In a second clip, Mike Montgomery insists that Chenega would have to do 51% of the work in order to be compliant on paper. This is mostly done through the hiring project managers to oversee the subcontractor on the site. That way, they can justify, on paper, that the management portion of any project is arguably 51% of the work. But in this clip, when the undercover journalist remarks, that is just, quote, on paper, Mike Montgomery chuckles and says, well, yeah.
Do you subcontract once
I do,
yeah. But Mike, if we become underneath him like a subcontractor, we will do all the work, right? You just manage it to make sure the work is being done.
Well, there's a requirement for, if we're the prime and it's 8A set aside, we have to do 51% of the work. So 51% has to be performed on us.
On paper.
Yeah. Well, you got to stay compliant because you get in trouble.
So compliant on paper.
Yeah.
Now, Chenega is one of the largest culprits in this whole scheme, and the senator from Alaska is opposed to this reform, but some want to reform the program, including putting a cap on how much money are given in each contract, a cap of $100 million. If any tribe is more than $1 million per member, and in this case with Chenega, it's $1.4 billion over 100 tribal members, that's $14 million per tribal member, then the tribe does not get the deal. And 5% must go into community reinvestment, not into the pockets of wealthy white executives in Washington. It does appear in this program that most of the money is going to white guys in Washington and to a tribe in Alaska, not to help the socially disadvantaged. One of the other reforms that are being proposed in Washington right now is to redefine what social disadvantage means, maybe also to include white people as being socially disadvantaged. That includes, for example, veteran groups. Veteran groups are at a severe disadvantage when it comes to these sole source contracts. 62% of the 8A money is actually only going to tribal firms. 7% in fiscal year 2024 going to veteran-owned firms. And these are just a few of the reforms being proposed in Washington, D.C. on the heels of this new investigation coming out from Chenega, or on Chenega, in Alaska. We also spoke to Ricky Longhurst, a senior account executive for Cherokee Federal in Oklahoma. Ricky Longhurst, San Antonio, Texas. There's his LinkedIn, Texas metropolitan area. He's not Native American, another Caucasian senior account executive for Cherokee Federal. And in this first clip, Ricky claims that Cherokee Federal, the business, takes 63% of the profits, while 37% goes to the tribe.
Are you a native?
I am not.
I don't have to be a native.
No. And we just were there 3 weeks ago for our leadership summit, right? And so we got to go out to the reservation for the reservation. We've done in the past, but it just kind of reminds you what you're doing. Think about it, we give 37 back to the tribe for infrastructure. 63% goes back to the business. I know this sounds like a sales pitch. It's not. It's just it gives us a purpose for what we do in industry.
Notice there that Ricky Longhurst also acknowledges that he is not himself a tribal member. They're never tribal members. Cherokee Federal also outsources the majority of the work to subcontractors such as Deloitte. So we've seen Accenture and we've seen Deloitte. A lot of people employed in the nation's capital working for these firms. The money is going to Washington. In this next clip, Ricky describes that they're able to obtain contracts sometimes worth up to $100 million. And because they're native-owned, there is, quote, no protest, no justification and approval, so it streamlines acquisitions without competition.
We bring our subcontract based on a need, based on if we have a gap we need to fill. So that's all there is to it. Now, as far as the 8A contract goes, I know you guys have probably heard this before, a direct award we can receive up to $100 million. And so they can't, there's no protest, there's no J&A. So, I mean, it's a way for a contracting officer to streamline his acquisitions without competition.
That's a beautiful place to be in.
It's cheating, but...
So, Ricky, that's a good way of putting it, though. Cheating.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He's calling it cheating. Able to obtain $100 million cheating. No comp, no justification, no approval, no competition. And Cherokee Federal, mostly run by non-tribal members like white people like Ricky, and enriching firms like Deloitte, retains $63 million while outsourcing pretty much all the work to non-8A, non-Native American companies. We've got one more clip from Ricky here where he acknowledges that in order to make their 51% requirement on paper, they essentially just put a program manager on site with a sub. The undercover journalist asks, so that's why you have PMs, project managers on site to monitor, but the sub is doing all the actual work? To which Ricky replies, absolutely.
But Ricky, you do a lot of the managing, right, of these big contracts? You manage them?
I don't do that.
But people within Cherokee Federal.
Every contract has a program manager, a project manager. I'm the one out winning the work.
The facts that you have all these subcontractors, that's why you have PMs to go and monitor that. But your subcontractors are performing the actual the contract. Yeah. So you have somebody from Cherokee on site, and you have the people that do the invoices, but the work is being performed by the subcontractor.
Yeah.
Which good subcontractor?
Cheating. This is what they think about all of you. This is their reaction to you, the taxpayer. Again, our entire investigation into the 8A program and these companies that use it as a loophole has really exposed the entire program as just an absurd system that doesn't solve any kind of cultural disenfranchisement at all. All it has done is create a Kafkaesque system in which any company seeking to do business has to find a minority owner to even be considered by the government, at which point they just take the majority of the profits, give a fraction to its Native American tribe, and a fraction of it to the sub, while hoarding the majority of the wealth to themselves without doing any work. Why couldn't the government have just given the contract directly to the sub, such as Accenture, for $35 million, instead of insisting on sending $100 million to these tribal-owned middlemen? The taxpayer gets screwed. The sub doing the labor gets screwed, and worst of all, even the tribal members feel deceived and used. Here's a clip from the Susanville tribal members reacting to our coverage of what ATI was achieving with their supposed ownership. They called an emergency meeting, and it is clear the majority of the tribe didn't even know this was happening.
When I was told with the video with area chairman, I found out that day, right before Tuesday's meeting.
So what I'm saying is, are you going to solve
forward, we should all see how this plays out. But what I found out, and I'm not going to speak for Mary or the rest of the board, I didn't know we had another board of those individuals. I know the Serco, I know 4 tribes. I didn't know we had an ATI, I didn't know we had an SS5. But we have tribal members on those boards that we need answers from, and that's what we are doing.
Do you know what the meeting is?
Some of our members stole $500 million and give the elders or the kids money for coats.
Really?
They just have ripped us off. They need to be in jail.
So the elders?
You read it online. It's Small Business Administration that, man, they've been ripping off bad.
Really?
And they can't find one of the guys, and he's got access to $500 million. Where's he at? He should be at this meeting.
Who's that?
The little Lowry, one of the Lowry family. The whole Lowry family's been ripping off all this time. So
interesting.
Get them out of there. Go back to Washington, D.C. and bid on fictitious Indian companies that don't exist. They get extra money for that.
Really?
It's all a facade.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's going to be more interesting when they go to jail.
Oh.
It's all a facade. All the members had no idea that high-ranking employees are paying themselves millions of dollars. This new one, Chenega, $1.4 billion. This is big money. And how much of that money is actually going to the Native Americans? Well, according to these Native Americans in California, almost none. They can't even afford to buy clothes, while the tribal members that are supposed to benefit from these programs can't afford insulation in their homes. Tracy Lent fights back tears as she reacts to our then reporting.
We hear about all this money that is going through certain tribal people's hands, but it's not getting to our people. So that's what I'm upset about.
To hear how much money that's coming in is heartbreaking, because my grandma has a home on a reservation and there's no insulation in her house. And here you have this millionaire making money off of us, and we're here begging for help. All of the things that were created for us, we don't benefit from. All of this money that you see, we don't benefit a single dime from any of that. Why do we have to suffer? Why do our elders have to not have health care? Why is our people struggling when we could be millionaires, you know?
My personal opinion is that they all need to be taken out. And Dora Laurie needs to go to jail. That's how I feel.
And as you see there, these programs are not helping the people they're supposed to help. Tracy Lent there crying, wondering why they haven't utilized the program themselves, but instead have been taken advantage of by fraudsters. And it makes me wonder how many tribal members within Chenega or Cherokee are aware of the contracts being facilitated by Mike Montgomery and Ricky Longhurst. And the reforms proposed in Washington, D.C. right now says that 5% has to go back to the community. Why would Senator Murkowski be opposed to this? And would the people in Alaska have a similar reaction to the Susanville Indian Rancheria? I'm sure we'll find out in the wake of this episode. $16 billion in 2024. We're talking about 5% of the federal deficit. Huge, big money. And by the way, you are making an enemy of the people that you are supposedly trying to help. Even if you want to help these people, you're not even doing that. And what is it all really about? It's all about money. It's all about people in Washington with their mortgages and their homes and their kids in private schools. They don't want that money flow taken away, no. And it's going to 100 people in Alaska and Deloitte in Washington. So that's the latest on the 8A undercover work that we've done exclusive here at OMG and Citizen Journalism Foundation. Thank you for watching On the Inside, and stay tuned for next week and the week after and the week after. The next 3 weeks, we're going to be breaking the biggest story of my career, showing things ever before captured on tape. And yes, I'll be in the front lines. We have an image here of me on the ground, undercover, exposing things that need to be exposed with a number of other citizen journalists. And this is incontrovertible, and this is on tape. And again, I want to play that little tease I played for you last week, where I said that you have to believe it. You have to believe it for it to occur. You have to know that you can do it. Stop complaining and go out there and go get the incontrovertible evidence that will lead to arrests. Stay tuned next Tuesday on the Inside with James O'Keefe as we begin the crusade on the biggest story we've ever done. And please donate to Citizen Journalism Foundation at o'keefemediagroup.com. Tax-deductible donations to make this work possible and to help defend the rights of our undercover journalists, including making sure Mark Zaid is not successful in his attempt to shut us down. Thank you.